welcome to Sideshow. Court of the Dead is Sideshow's original property, and we are in the last 5 hours of our very exciting Kickstarter for Court of the Dead, Mourner's Call, our strategic tabletop board game. If you'd like more details about that board game, please go to sideshow.com/Kickstarter. You can find out more about the game and its components, but today I'm talking to Rachel Roubicek,
hi everyone,
one of our designers and artists here at Sideshow who did a lot of the 2D art and illustration for the game. We're going to take a closer look at some of the cards that Rachel illustrated, and we'll be doing a Q&A a little bit later. So please hop on our social. You can talk to Lacey, submit some questions to her, and let's start to delve into the dark mind of Rachel Roubicek, Court of the Dead illustrator. And Rachel, you brought to us today an illustration.
I copied Matt.
You copied Matt.
Yeah, he had an iPad. I was like, oh, I'll bring mine.
Who's your office mate, right? You're across the way from Matt, over across the street.
Yeah.
So what are you working on today, and what have you got here on the iPad to share with us?
It's no one in particular. It's just a flesh mourner that I was working on. I was trying to focus on trying to make clothing that is made of flesh and also body parts. Like her hair is more organic. It's not strainy like hair, and she has a collar that's of like teeth, so it's all fused together, and so you can kind of see that in areas like this where it's sort of, I can zoom in on it for you guys. So it's a little bit there with her the teeth and everything like that, and it's kind of funny because she sort of really doesn't have a mouth. It's all fused together. So, and then she's got like, I think I gave her like 5 eyes. Yeah, 5 eyes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh.
Totally probably not productive in any way whatsoever, but it works for her.
Well, 2 eyes are better than 1, so 5 are better than 2.
Yeah, but realistically that'd be the case.
What's some of the inspiration that you take? Are you watching like Silence of the Lambs? Are you going online and looking at leather? Like where are you pulling inspiration for
I'm
drawing
actually
like
a
this?
huge baby when it comes to scary films,
Oh.
which is kind of strange considering I draw pretty macabre, horrible stuff. But I think the difference between that is I visually like looking at stuff. Like a lot of my inspiration is like Beksinski. I do not know how to pronounce his first name. It's like with a bunch of Z's and some D's and a V at some point. It's like a Russian name.
We'll follow up in the comments with that in case people are curious.
Yeah, and I also like looking at like ossuaries and crypts and stuff from around the world.
For bone faction type stuff.
Not even just that. It's also because a lot of the times when I'm doing stuff for flesh characters or spirit characters, I'm basically taking a lot of those elements, but then like stretching skin over it or making it more organic looking for a flesh person. But if its spirit is a lot more loose and gestural.
So for those of you that aren't familiar with the Court of the Dead, there are 3 factions in the underworld: bone, flesh, and spirit. These play pretty heavily into the game, and then we're going to delve into some of the card art here too, and you'll get to see the 3 different factions. If you want to find out your faction, you can go to courtofthedead.com/quiz. Take that quiz, find out your faction, and you'll get a cool free faction allegiance kit that comes with this really awesome little enamel pin. And you're probably going to want to be Bone Faction. That's my faction.
Bone's the best.
And it's Rachel's faction.
Best faction.
So we'll be making a lot of recruitment pleas, I think, throughout the next
join us. Follow the
20
truth
minutes.
path of Bone. Yes. We're not as weak as the other 2, for sure.
But let's delve into some Bone Faction art, actually. Here,
so you mean most of the cards that I did?
Yeah, definitely not a bias. Let's move this off to the side a little bit here. We can maybe get a top-down view to look at these 4 different cards from the Mourner deck that Rachel did the illustrations for. And Rachel, you brought the full art, right? So this is kind of edited with some design.
Yeah.
Maybe we could look at these one at a time with some of the full art so people can see the full illustration and then kind of clips it down. I know you brought some extra goodies too to share some different character art. But let's start with Sheev. You want to start with Ruse? Let's start with
I pulled
Ruse.
her first, so why not?
We'll start with Ruse of Calvin Harrows. Who is she, and how did we come to her design?
Well, I call her the crazy cat lady of the underworld, but that's because she's obsessed with weapons and armaments. And it makes sense because Calvin Harrows is her abode.
And what is Calvin Harrows? Which is also a location on the board game map that you're going to want to control.
Yes, it is. So Calvin Harrows, what it is basically everyone in the underworld where they get their weapons, where they get ammunition and stuff, they have to go to Calvin Harrows and basically go to Ruse and...
So it's the weapons and equipment hall.
Yeah.
And she's kind of the mistress and keeper of that.
Yes, but she's kind of fickle, for sure. She's...
As any wise Bone Faction member would be.
She is, and she's definitely... she can hear the stories and the whispers that the weapons can say.
So she's like a weapon whisperer, huh?
Yeah, in a way, for sure. So she likes to try to match weapons. It's kind of the equivalent, like kind of like in Harry Potter, where the wand matches the wizard. She tries to do that with the weapons, where she tries to match them to their particular mourner. So, for example, with Demethyl with Cryptmourn, he has to go to Ruse and get that sword from her. And she matches it to him pretty appropriately.
Which will be a very interesting scene in our upcoming novel, Rise of the Reaper General.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit more about the art here. What were some of the influences that went into the character design here? Did you look at a particular era? What are some of the Court of the Dead design tenets that are present in this character design?
I was going more with a lot of the Court of the Dead characters fancy going towards the European direction, where they're either plate mail, Germanic sense, types of armor and helmets that are more like in German, Spanish,
which is maybe
French,
more
English.
Malthus and Gignath, right?
Yes.
Just for a basis of comparison here, you can see there's a lot of kind of intricate armor plating like Rachel's talking about.
If I can
I'll pull it up there.
bring that up. What?
There we go. Cool.
Oh, what am I doing?
Oh, you've got the full illustration?
Yeah.
Here we go. Okay, so this is more typical for Court of the Dead, the Eastern European reference.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
If you can point at some of the different elements of that maybe as you're talking, that'd be
Yeah.
cool.
So with Malthus, she's actually a combination of a little bit. I'm just going to use the pen since it's easier to point with. I actually was looking at a lot of Viking-based stuff for her.
Oh, cool.
She does have a plate mail thing just to have it built in, but she's got a lot of fur bands. She's got more of a helmed piece. It's kind of actually a mix of some Viking helmets that I was looking up, as well as the Conquistador helmets with that like fun visor they have.
Definitely see that Spanish influence in there.
Yeah, and then she's obviously got like a broad axe, and she also likes using a shield. So it's kind of a mix of Viking, Spanish, and basic plate. And then Gignath, he's pretty standard plate mail.
He looks a lot like Demethyl with kind of the traditional pointed.
Yeah, it makes sense. And the reason why is because Malthus and Gignath are actually Demethyl's hands. They're
as their card says.
Yes,
Hands of
exactly
the
that.
Reaper General.
They are two of the original 100 Reapers that back when Demethyl defended the Ilvernus against the Bale Reavers, they, along with him, were some of the only remaining survivors. And since then, they basically help work with the army and help Demethyl out with tactics and strategy and how to make the Reapers do well with the harvest.
So comparing Malthus and Gignath, who are maybe more typical of the Court of the Dead military, to Ruse, where are some of her costume influences coming from?
So a lot of them are coming from the fact that I wanted to give her fun drapery, so I went with this like cool shoulder sash sling, so she can kind of conceal and hide weapons. And she has a lot of like built-in armor. She has like this scale mail built in here, and she has it a little bit in her shoulder area here. And then
she looks almost Arabic a little bit with some of the
I was definitely going with more
fabrics
Arab, Middle Eastern, and kind of going with what's necessary. She does have some, is it greaves? Are the legs? Yes, greaves. You think I'd know this, having to draw them constantly. But she has greaves, but she's barefoot. So she's very agile and very quick. And so she wants to have as minimal armor to be as less cumbersome as possible. And
I know she's got 3 arms too.
Actually, she's got more than that, but that's the fun thing about the cloak is she kind of hides it. She's like one of those like crazy salesmen who opens up their coat and they have a bunch of stuff. It's like she's just got a bunch of swords and daggers.
And is this a mask or is this part of her head and face that's going on?
It's actually it's a part of a mask and a helmet that she wears.
Oh.
And this is actually what she looks like without the helmet on.
Oh, awesome.
So you see the scale mail built up and sewn into her neck, and it's kind of stitched into her skin. And I wanted to give her darker skin because we have a lot of like the human characters that we do have. They're mostly either paler or more ghastly looking, and with her I wanted to go more darker and gaunt.
You want to pull from a different range of ethnicities and make sure that's incorporated throughout the underworld, so it's just as diverse as the mortal realm that it's reflecting and pulling from.
And there was a specific tribe, I think this is again just mixing her together with a bunch of things, but there's a certain tribe in Nigeria that all the women had the best haircuts ever, and I went with her. So I like wanted to give her a really cool braided hair that's out of her face and out of her way. Yeah. I want to give her a little bit of style and bling. So.
But also practical for a, combat situation.
Yeah, she's scary. Like, you don't want to ever take anything from Calvin Harris, or you're going to regret that for the rest of your life.
Let's talk about your process a little bit. How were these done? Were these done traditional? Did you do them on an iPad like the one that you brought with today?
Mostly the iPad is for my own like little personal doodles and sketches and stuff. But with for work, I mostly use Photoshop on a tablet.
Like a Cintiq tablet?
No, actually, like a standard Intuos Pro tablet. I don't like the sensation of using a Cintiq very much. I guess
How is that different from, someone who, is not an illustrator? It just seems like a stylus and a Surface would be a stylus and a Surface.
I think
there
maybe
really a big difference between a Cintiq and a tablet?
Well, the Cintiq, obviously, you are able to see directly in front of you what you're working with, which is what the iPad is. But there's a strange thing where I actually enjoy the sensation of an Apple Pen and the speed of traction that it goes with more than a Cintiq. With the Cintiq, I notice the lag sometimes, and it kind of messes with when I'm like stroking down a line. It kind of messes with me. Whereas I've gotten so used to using a tablet that I'm drawing like this, but I'm staring at the screen.
So you're not even looking at your hand when you're drawing. You're not looking where you're making the line. You're looking where it manifests.
Yeah.
And it's a really interesting process.
Yeah.
It's pretty unique, probably.
A little bit. I mean, it depends on. I mean, I know a few people who do use Cintiqs. Like Matt uses a Cintiq, and a few others, and then some use tablets. But I think it's just I started off that way, so I just got used to it. And then when I was in school and trying to do some Photoshop classes with Cintiqs, I just found it being completely uncomfortable, and I just asked the professor, like, "Can I just print in my laptop?"
Let's look at a couple of your other characters that you brought with today. Let's look at the other two bone faction illustrations you did cards. We've got Goliad and Sheev, who, if you've ever been to our booth at Comic-Con, or if you're going to be at San Diego Comic-Con this year, we actually have an art study of Sheev that we've done to explore for product. Actually, we'll put Sheev to the side for a second. Let's talk Goliad here. Goliad's awesome.
This
you
guy.
Explain who he is?
He's the guard of Voxengard. So he
also
is
a location on the map in the board game.
Yes.
Which is what? What is Voxengard?
It is the basically it is the establishment and home of where the Bone faction is. It's where Zyle and the Council of Ostymancy do their work. It is outside the city, and Goliad.
Headquarters.
Yeah, it's our headquarters basically. And Goliad is the guardian. He walks around and basically protects the premises. He's the scariest big guard giant.
So to give our viewership here a sense of Goliad's scale.
That's Zyle, and that's Relic Ravelach.
They're so teeny tiny.
Ravelach
is gargantuan.
Yeah, he's pretty big. Ravelach was actually the one who found him, and so that was kind of depicting this moment and him presenting him to Zyle.
And this is such a cool design. What were some of the influences that went into this illustration?
So, can I talk about it a little bit with Goliad's history?
Yeah, totally.
So Goliad actually is a creation of the Celestials. So he actually has a halo-like horn set up to complement the demonic and angelic nature that he originally had. And he was reawakened some long time ago by Ravelach and brought over to basically guard Ilvernus, or at least guard Voxengard. And he actually is made of a lot of, like, it's hard to depict it here, but actually all these like little squiggly lines and bits and stuff like that are actually supposed to be the bodies of deceased Celestials. So
you obviously really start with the story component, working with Tom Gilliland, who's our chief creative and also the creator of the Court of the Dead. How do you connect those stories then to manifest into a design? So if Tom gives you the story of Goliad and his making and where he came from, you obviously have some Court of the Dead canon you can pull from, but then there's some stuff you have to kind of make up. What's your process for like research and thinking and starting to get that sketching and figure out and connect those two worlds?
Well, like for one thing, like I said about the helmet, like the Celestials have a type of halo no matter what. The demons have one, but it's made of their horns usually. And it might be reversed or something like that, where it goes around their neck or their face instead of going upward against their head like an angel's would. And so that was an easy decision, but then I wanted to stylize it a little bit different so it wasn't exactly as round. It had a little bit of this, point out this way, so it had a little bit of a sharpness to it. And then kind of thinking that if this guy is composed of a lot of bodies, he's got like almost like tendons and ligaments of the bodies being held together and holding on to each other. And they all are a unified being. So they all lost their consciousness to become Goliad, but they still all work together. And it's kind of what Goliad is, a last remaining relic of when the Celestials used to work together. And obviously now they don't.
One kingdom.
Yes.
Let's keep moving through some of the other cards you've got here. A couple of my favorites coming up, even though they're Flesh faction. We've got Grim Digits here, and White Shiv, our heartthrob. Why don't we talk through White Shiv really quick first? And did you have card art for Shiv, like a bigger illustration? Okay.
I forgot to bring it
later.
Just like I forgot to bring carvers.
No worries.
Oh wait, no, did I? No, I did.
Here's Mr. White Shiv. So he's a Flesh faction character, a favorite of ours.
White Shiv is a member of the Conclave of Shadows, as well.
Which is the assassin and spy network. And also that guild is represented in the game by a line of miniatures.
Yeah, actually that's his. He's one of the starter mourners that you can pick when you select the game. Actually, Goliad and I believe Melvis and Gignoth are also.
Yeah, I think all the characters we're looking at today are starting characters, which means that they're mourners of some significance. So when you actually pick your faction at the start of the game, you get to pick from a series of kind of powerful, significant mourners, like the sort of alphas of the deck. And everything we've looked at, I think, is one of those. But White Shiv is hero's heartache.
White Shiv, he's kind of trying to go around. He's trying to do things with the best intentions, but sometimes, much to Exrail's maybe irritation.
Sort of a Jack Sparrow of the underworld.
Yeah, for sure. He's trying to go around doing vigilante justice. Like, there was actually that one comic, I'm forgetting what it was, the name of it, but it's the one with him thinking that one of the mourners from Hushide is a raker, and he's going after him, and Malavestros is like, no, stop it.
So Rachel's referencing Court of the Dead comic omnibus called Grave Tales. If you go online, it collects a lot of our online comics obviously between two covers with some interstitials from Malavestros and a bonus comic that features White Shiv and Malavestros at the end there, getting up to absolutely no good at all.
Yeah, I do like out of it though, they became buddies. It's actually really fascinating that White Shiv since then has the tendency to go to Hushide and talk with Malavestros, because he tries to mellow himself out and learn, but it's like a slow pace, so that's why he goes to Malavestros, because Malavestros is extremely patient. Extremely.
That he is.
Although with some people he's not.
Let's talk about Grim Digits here.
So you mean the people he's not patient with?
Grim Digits is one of my favorites. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the story of her and her Cryptlorn troop, her little gang, her little
unlucky
Dickinsonian,
her little horrible Oliver Twist gang?
Yeah, exactly.
The unlucky 13. There's 13 of these little kiddos running around and basically ruling over Ilverness's markets. And
so we've cherry picked how many here?
4 of them. So there's
where's that 4th one?
he's up here. He's all spirity.
Oh, he's so cute.
So Grim Digits actually she's a spirit born. So she was created in the underworld. And when you are created, you can have the tendency to take on whatever form you want, or the one that, Gethsemane or any of the Weaverden will make for you, or the Shroud Reeves, whoever decide to create you. And for some reason, Grim Digits decided to take the visage of a teenager. Although with some problems, she's got a lot of creepy legs.
Which is one of the really cool things I think about looking at the full art compared with the card art. Obviously, for functionality reasons, we had to trim that for the design, but you can see here her many
I think I counted
she
has 10
legs going on below her.
She's got like 10 going, which is like a horrible. Actually, that was.
And they don't really all end in feet, right?
No, there are some that are pincers, some that are hooves. That's where the weird amalgamation comes from sometimes being a soulborn, where you can be practically made of anything. But she wanted the cute upper appearance of a cute little girl. She's even got a bow, but it's actually like fleshy bits, so don't touch it.
It's very Lady Gaga of her.
Yeah, but she also has. So what she does is she kind of runs weirdly a little underground system of Cryptus Acor. Curiocryptus, which is the marketplace area of the underworld, and they kind of. Weirdly enough, are the little rulers of it, and people avoid them because they're like the little pit pockets. They're going to tease you. They might steal weapons from you and give them back to Ruse and do all these crazy things. And some of them are soul-born, some of them are spirit-born.
Kind of a little thieves network going on.
Yeah, exactly. And some of them are soul-borns that, grew old and, wanted to relive their childhood. So some of them took child forms. Some of them were children if they had died. And so that's all they knew.
And I know an angle of their story that particularly delights everyone on the court team is their relationship with Kier.
Red Sox.
Yeah, they call her Red Sox.
They call her Red Sox. They do not care if she's Death's daughter or if she's they
love to antagonize her.
And Melivestros. He has quite a frustration whenever they come to Hushhide because he's worried that they are going to recruit more to their little
grubby little troublemakers.
Yeah, little horrible little ragamuffin children often.
All right.
Although it's funny because Death does find them quite pleasing.
Put out these cards here, and let's ask Lacey if we've got so many questions that have come through on social for Rachel.
Everybody is loving these drawings. We have a couple requests about if there's going to be an art book or something with these drawings in it. Anything else coming?
Yes. It's something we're working on and exploring. We definitely have these collected and we have their backstories and we want to do something. Oh, there we go. There we go. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So that is something we're looking up as sort of like a, we're calling it a Reader's Digest, potentially.
Ha! I get it!
We love macabre puns.
I don't.
In the Court of the Dead,
And you torture me with
digest.
them.
Anyway, the answer is yes, that's definitely in process here. Because I think there's a lot of intricacies to this art and illustration and a lot of story driving it that we're not really able to fully communicate through the game. And so, taking that to the next level in a publication is definitely on the to-do list.
How long have you been drawing?
Since I was about 16.
Wow.
And you're like 17, so it's been almost a year.
I'm one of the youngest artists here, so.
I have to tease.
Yeah, such teases me. Since I was about 16. When I was little, I scribbled, but I didn't really draw. I didn't start actually drawing as like a passion until I was about 15, 16 years old, and later, like middle part of high school. And then I went off to college for animation, and then I drew a lot more.
Spite-wise.
Oh,
Ooh.
Spite-wise.
Here we go. Let's pull this up.
So, Spite-wise is this little guy. He's actually a little demon familiar of White Shiv's. And White Shiv,
He's the Chewbacca to his Han Solo. He's
Exactly.
the R2
the
to his
Tinkerbell,
Luke.
the Tinkerbell to his Peter Pan.
Kind of a troublemaker.
Yeah. He's sometimes worse than White Shiv, which is...
He's kind of a bad influence.
He totally
Literally
is.
a devil on his shoulder.
He's literally the devil on his shoulder. There's no angel over here. And
just a pistol.
yeah, and he actually also made an appearance in that comic. He was trying to pick up one of White Shiv's guns, and he totally could not do it.
He's kind of his Mogwai, right?
Yeah, oh my God.
Gone a little gremlin.
Yeah, it's actually interesting that the relationship, because White Shiv has a little bit going on with him that only really Spite-wise, Death, and Gethsemane are fully aware of. Exrail to an extent, but there's a little bit going on with him that Spite-wise was attracted to and makes you wonder as to why a little demon is hanging around this guy.
Yeah, that hints at some of the deeper story there. They definitely have a kind of affectionately antagonistic relationship, but they're very protective of each other when it comes to, encountering some other characters in the underworld. And so that dynamic is really fun to think about, especially when you're illustrating them, right?
Yeah, it's for Spite-wise, it's basically, you can't make fun of him, I will. So, yeah.
Anything else, Lacey, coming through?
There's one more. Oh, how long have you been at Sideshow doing this?
This would be starting, I think June 1st would be my 3rd year.
That's about right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, June 1st, that was my internship and everything like that.
Yeah, and you actually started working with us, while you were still in school as an intern, and then we just couldn't let her go.
Yeah, and then I had a final year of school with working here, and that was fun.
Rachel's also a Court of the Dead expert in-house. I mean, she's a super fan of the IP, and I think obviously that helps you do your job better, but you know, that interest has also kind of helped. You've done a lot of the world building with us too. Rachel works on a lot of our designs of our characters. Most recent example, which is the new Galavar PF that's currently available for pre-order.
Yeah.
That was one of Rachel's designs. So
The remakes, all of them were designs I worked on. And that was cool to do because it was trying to rethink those poses and the statues and their attitudes and seeing what I can convey with them in a different approach.
Do you have a favorite character?
I do have a favorite character. I love the leader of Conclave, the Conclave of Shadows. Exriel's my boy.
Wait a minute, he's flesh faction.
Rachel! Technically, he's an angel. So, you know, he's technically a celestial. So, you know.
You guys are going to be the Romeo and Juliet of the underworld here.
No, I just think he's really cool. I do like that whole, you know, he was betrayed, he was cast out, he found his way to the underworld, and his fun fact is he's actually way older than Death is. So I really do like that they have this sense of respect towards one another and like guidance towards one another, and I don't know, I just think it's really cool. Also, I really like the assassin like archetype, so him being like the epitome of that's really cool.
Yeah, the leader of that group.
Yeah.
Everyone seems so invested in the lore of Court of the Dead. How often do you sit around and work on the storylines and just talk through the scenarios and all that?
Like through actual meetings, or when I decide to go bother Tom in his office?
So the answer is not often enough.
Not often enough.
Yeah. We do try and do that officially as often as we can, but I think we'd all like to do that more.
Yeah, every now and then I'll be like, hey, Tom, what's this?
Except for every time we do that, we generate like 10 new projects. And so we gotta kind of make sure we finish what we started.
Anna has to wrangle me from asking him questions sometimes.
That's why I'm Bone Faction.
Do you have a dream project that you'd like to work on in the future?
Ooh, good question.
Well, it's kind of interesting because I started here with an internship, and mostly with that, I was working on core property stuff, so the Spider-Mans, the Batmans, all those things. And the whole time I was like, oh, wouldn't it be awesome if I got to work on Court of the Dead? And that was at the same time that the Chronicle was being worked on and being finalized. So like every day when like Ricky, one of our project managers and everything like that, would go and post up new pages of it, I'd like go and read it. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. I want to work on that.
And
Here I am. So I think I'm kind of doing it right now. But you know, honestly, like working on any of the new IP stuff is really cool. I am working on a new one at the moment. That's been pretty cool, and it's one of my favorite subject matters. So yeah, so that's pretty cool.
How is anything older than death?
How is anything older than him? Well, a lot of the celestial realm is. So
you have to read the Chronicle to find out. Good question.
We have one more. You've played the game.
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite tactic?
Killing everyone.
As
As I said, I like the assassin thing, so I just manipulate the Conclave of Shadows and try to have as many of those pieces as I possibly can. That's if I'm flesh, though. Usually if I'm bone, I try to get as many of the Unity tokens as I can, so I try to go more Unity route, and also sometimes going into the wallows with trying to get artifacts.
Mm-hmm. Tom loves that play. That's a good play.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 6 guilds in the game that you can control, and at the end of the round, if you have the most number of miniatures of that guild, you control it and you get a benefit. And the particularly Machiavellian one of the conclave is you get to literally execute someone and completely remove
It's
them
really
from the
awesome.
game.
I also love getting
brutal.
Argylevale at that point too. And it's like,
yeah,
hey, I
'cause-
just gonna murder a guy now, and when we get to the cleanup phase, I'm gonna murder more of you.
Bloodthirsty, Rachel. Oh my god.
Hey, it's gotten me to like a few times to win, and I've gotten second place pretty consistently too. So
So we know Anna has the highest score, but Rachel, have you ever won a game?
I've won 2 games, and I've played 6 times,
Nice.
but I think I made second place on like 3 of them. So I think the very first time I totally came in like dead last, but I also just did not know what I was doing.
It's a learning curve, but you're also a pretty avid gamer too.
Mhm.
So I think you're one of the few people that, especially when we started playtesting, came to the game with kind of that mindset.
Well, I was even asking you like, hey, when are we gonna play the game next time? Although it's interesting though, because I actually have not played the current iteration of it. I played the one like right before it. So like each time was 6 different versions.
We're way overdue for a game night.
Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
cool. Cool. I think we're good on questions. So thank you for joining us. We've been doing an awesome Q&A and a little behind-the-scenes peek of Court of the Dead Mourner's Call here with Rachel Roubicek, one of our designers, illustrators, and artists here at Sideshow. If you want to learn more about the game, go to sideshow.com/Kickstarter. And of course, if you want to find out that you are of the Bone faction, which is the best faction, go to courtofthedead.com/quiz. Take the quiz, find out your faction, hope that you're Bone, and you'll get a free cool allegiance.
Or just rig it and choose all the serious sounding ones that actually sound like they're doing things correctly.
Yep.
That one too.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.